The Digital Production Buzz is brought to you by KeyFlow Pro, media asset management software designed to meet the needs of work groups at an affordable price.
Tonight on The Buzz, we take a look at what we can expect in 2018 from a variety of experts and perspectives. We may not always be right, but it makes for some very interesting discussion. We start with Ned Soltz, contributing editor for Red Shark News, who looks at 2018 from the perspective of cameras and production. Next is Randi Altman, editor-in-chief of PostPerspective.com, who shares her thoughts on leading trends in post-production. Next is Jonathan Handel, entertainment labor reporter for The Hollywood Reporter, who brings his legal and labor point of view to the discussion. Next is Michele Yamazaki, VP of Marketing for ToolFarm, who brings a solid background in visual effects and the business of our business to her preview of 2018. Next is Philip Hodgetts, CEO of Intelligent Assistants, who looks at the new year as a developer. Next is Michael Kammes, Director of Technology for KeyCode Media, who shares his thoughts on the upcoming year from the perspective of large media workgroups and enterprises. And as always, James DeRuvo, Editor-in-Chief of doddleNEWS.com, presents our weekly DoddleNEWS update. The buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
Authoritative.
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals,
Current.
uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan, and Happy New Year. Last week, we looked back at 2017 to spot the trends and technology that most affected our industry. Tonight, we turn 180 degrees and look forward into 2018. We've assembled the same team of analysts as last week, each of whom represents a different perspective on our industry. What impresses me is not only the breadth of their opinions, but how often they disagree with each other. This will be a fun chance to compare your opinion with theirs, and at the end of the show, I'll share my thoughts as well. By the way, I want to invite you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue every week provides quick links to the different segments on the show, plus articles of interest to filmmakers. Best of all, it's free and comes out every Saturday. And now it's time for our DoddleNEWS update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James.
Happy New Year, Larry.
And a very happy New Year to you as well. By the way, before we get started, I wanted to congratulate you on your promotion to Editor-in-Chief of doddleNEWS.com. Congratulations and well-deserved.
Well, thank you, sir. I got to tell you, the 10-year-old in me was screaming, "This is the best Christmas ever!" I got the news just before the holiday.
You got any special plans as you settle into your new role?
My goal is going to be what it's always been, which is to make DoddleNEWS the go-to site for independent filmmaking news, tutorials, and product reviews. That's my goal. I want it to become the best it can possibly be, and even better.
Well, I wish you great success, and we'll do what we can to help out at this end.
Yes, and vice versa.
Now I want to shift gears, James, because in this show I want to have us focus on what's going to happen in 2018. So I thought I'd ask what your thoughts are as you look ahead.
I think we're going to see a lot of the same. We're going to see some more disruptive technologies, but I think we're also going to see artificial intelligence have a greater impact on technology in general, but maybe even in our industry when it comes to post-production workflow. It's something that's going to affect our everyday life. Most of the time, we won't even know it either. There's been some dabbling with artificial intelligence to do automatic edits in nonlinear editing and even writing screenplays. GoPro has an automatic edit feature within their mobile app setting. It's basic at this point, and there's been some dubious results, but as AI gets smarter, we may see a film get edited by a computer rather than on it. Then there's also virtual acting. We saw some incredible work that was done to bring Peter Cushing back to life in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. But last year, for Blade Runner 2049, the post-production crew made Sean Young appear like she hadn't aged a day. And that shows that with time, money, and a lot of computing power, an actor's career could be practically indefinite.
James, what do you see as the downside, if any, of AI?
I think AI is going to have a long development road. I mean, we're not talking Skynet here. It's going to take a long time for a artificial intelligence to get smart enough to avoid common mistakes that we see coming down a lot down the road. As you can imagine, because I think it was last year or the year before, they used an AI to write a screenplay, and then they filmed it, and it was complete word salad. It made absolutely no sense. So it's going to take a while before this actually has a huge impact, but I expect to see a lot of development in 2018.
Okay, that's AI. What's next?
I think virtual reality is going to continue to go bust in favor of augmented reality. 2017 made it kind of a flavor of the month for some filmmakers, but VR has had difficulty finding an audience due to high cost of gear and a limited amount of content. And then there's that queasy feeling you get while watching virtual reality for extended periods of time. Augmented reality, however, has been gradually overtaking VR, thanks to its real-world attraction of putting fantasy elements into it. I'm not saying that virtual reality is going to die per se, but I think that augmented reality has much more practical and enjoyable interactive element that keeps audiences rooted in what they're watching. And from a practical aspect, I think it'll be even bigger, while VR will go the way of 3D.
I can see the benefit of AR to consumers, but do you see a benefit to filmmakers for AR?
I don't think filmmakers will be able to benefit from it on set, maybe in post. But I really don't see how a filmmaker could benefit from it other than maybe he's looking through the camera image and he sees all the settings of the camera settings on his augmented reality glasses. It may make it convenient, but I don't think it'll have a measurable impact.
Okay, that's AR. What's another on your list?
Ultra high definition will continue to become the mainstream, and we're going to see 5G supplant maybe even our internet connections. 2017 was the year that found filmmakers finally leaving 1080p behind in favor of 4K. The higher-end cinema cameras have all moved beyond 4K now, but it's all the rage in smartphones. And we may even see higher resolutions make it into those lower-end camera platforms. So are you ready for an 8K GoPro or an iPhone XS shooting in 8K? Well, maybe not that much, but 6K could definitely happen. There's also a next-generation wireless spec known as 5G. We're currently at 4G LTE. And as more cell phone providers make the transition to LTE, 5G is going to make us connect even faster and just about everywhere. So that means users could decouple their internet access from the home and solely rely on mobile phones as a blindingly fast hotspot. So you could be streaming your next binge watch through your mobile cellular subscription and canceling your home internet access altogether.
Very interesting. What else do you see happening in 2018?
Well, I think we're going to see more computer security issues affecting all of us. Just recently, there was an exploit that hit every single Intel-based chip made in the last 10 years, and the fix is going to slow down your computer by as much as 30% when patched. I think we're going to see more pain when it comes to living our digital life.
Amazing series of projections. We'll just have to see what happens. James, for people that want to keep track of what's happening in our industry, where do they go on the web?
All these stories and more can be found at doddleNEWS.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of doddleNEWS.com. And James, I wish you all success. I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, Larry. Happy New Year.
When you can't find your media, you need a media asset management solution. KeyFlow Pro. This simple but powerful software is designed specifically to help you organize, track, and find your media. Whether you work alone or part of a group, its intuitive user interface helps you easily store, sort, search, play, annotate, and share your media using team-based shared libraries over a network. Its wide range of features are all at a very affordable price. And with the new 1.8.3 update, rescanning is up to 10 times faster. Plus, KeyFlow Pro is integrated with macOS notifications, enabling you to collaborate faster and smarter, all in real time. KeyFlow Pro is available in a Mac App Store, or get a 30-day free trial at keyflowpro.com. KeyFlow Pro. Simple, elegant, and surprisingly affordable. Ned Soltz is an author, an editor, an educator, and consultant on all things related to digital video. He's also a contributing editor for Red Shark News, and best of all, he's a regular here on The Buzz. Hello, Ned. Welcome back.
Hi, Larry. Great to be back after a week's absence.
It is always good to have you back. And last week, you led off our discussion of what happened in 2017. You did such a great job. You're leading off the discussion of where we're going in 2018. So what do you see as the trends that we need to pay attention to?
I spoke last week about the trend to high dynamic range video, and I want to amplify on it this week because I think that really is one of the major directions that I see us heading in 2018. All the stars are converging for this. For years now, for several years, we've had cameras that can shoot 12 stops of dynamic range, or 14 stops, or 15 stops, or 16 stops, whatever the manufacturers are advertising. However, we've really had no way of practically displaying that entire range. So with the advent of new high dynamic range standards for acquisition, editing, and viewing, with the advent of now inexpensive consumer sets for high dynamic range. I was seeing LG sets this past holiday season, Sony sets, $400, $500, $600 that display high dynamic range, all the way up to some extraordinarily high quality OLED displays that still are in the $2,000 price range, which is what we were paying for HD TVs a few years ago. And with Vimeo and YouTube, this is going to be the year for high dynamic range.
I am a huge fan of HDR, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. But the other hot buzzwords that we're seeing this past year was 360 VR and augmented reality. What are your
augmented
thoughts?
reality, oh, absolutely. Even though Nokia has discontinued this high-end camera, there just obviously wasn't the market for it. We're seeing 360 cameras still in reasonable price points to more professional price points, and with Final Cut Pro 10, 10.4, now adding VR as one of its editing options. It's already been there in Adobe Premiere. We're going to see easier ways of editing. Delivery is already something that we can achieve via the web in a 360 case. And with goggles, we'll see more of that at more popular price range. And the augmented reality with dropping things into this. So this is going to be a real year for this. The software is catching up with it. The hardware is accessible. Even just viewing 360 on a computer, manually rotating the image with a mouse, you don't even really need specialized equipment necessarily to take at least partial advantage of it.
What's your thinking on artificial intelligence / machine learning?
I think we're going to see it this year more and more, particularly in acquisition and logging. That's where it's going to be of tremendous value of various artificial intelligence software, hardware combinations, which are really able to do a lot of the logging and metadata tagging for us. In a way, I'm not as happy with it as others, because I'll confess to being an old timer here. I loved the good old days of logging and capturing tape. And why did I do that? despite the fact of probably being about as adult ADD as one could be, and rushing and wanting to do things in a hurry, I always looked at that as a getting to know your footage. I really liked actually logging through a tape and actually looking at that footage, sometimes in detail, sometimes just enough to get an in point or an out point. And that was just such a benefit for me in editing. Yes, it's wonderful to have metadata. It's wonderful to have voice recognition voice to text recognition, where I can just click on a phrase and go right to that segment of the clip. There still was something about actually physically acquainting yourself with the footage. That world is gone. I've got to learn that standard definition in non-electric cars are a thing of the past. So I've got to move on. And as such, now it's going to streamline the process. We're a metadata world, and if it automated in an automated artificial intelligence fashion, we can end up with clips that are already tagged with metadata, put into the proper bins, and then start editing. It will indeed be a time saver, and for those of us billing on the clock, it's going to be a money saver for clients and delivery as well. I see that really going places this coming year.
Your system of logging makes the assumption of reasonable shooting ratios. As shooting ratios hit 1, 2, and 3,000 to 1, it becomes almost impossible to look at all that footage.
You can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore, right? That, as I say, those days are gone, because tape we rationed because we just can't carry that many tapes. You can carry as many cards as can fit in a pocket or fit in your little card carrier. So the shooting ratios, as you say, are absolutely absurd right now. And yet you have to use artificial intelligence.
What do you see happening with 8K? And should anything happen with 8K?
I think it should. I think we're probably reaching the point now of storage limits and really reasonably dealing with footage. I think for the moment, 8K in its earliest implementation is probably going to be very much like 4K was in its early implementation, really more for framing and moving around a frame and deriving multiple shots out of one shot. But yes, it's there. The technologies have been there for a few years, and give it 3 or 4 more years before it starts to move mainstream.
Last question before I let you go. What do you see happening in cameras?
I think the manufacturers are very wise now in not releasing cameras at the rate that they released cameras. The market just can't keep up with it. It's not there. I think what we're going to see is a continuation of building on firmware updates for existing cameras. Anything that we see now camera-wise is certainly going to have that ability to output varying types of high dynamic range footage. And we're going to still be all over the board here in terms of the lower end of the spectrum. I suspect we may start seeing things that are in the mid-range once again. Sony's FS7, which I own 2 of, has been around for a while. And the chipset's getting a little long in tooth. And while I have no information from Sony about it, and if I did, I couldn't say anything about it, I wouldn't be surprised to see that in line for some kind of refresh or update, along with the F5, F55 lines. Panasonic's already thrown out its salvo with the EVA 1, and we'll see what they decide to do with Vericams, and maybe this will be the year Ari will finally go 4K. Who knows?
It's always fun to speculate.
It is indeed.
Ned, for people who want to keep track of your writing, where can they go on the web?
Go to www.redsharknews.com, and there you'll find the latest and greatest of what I've been ruminating about.
And Ned, even the old stuff is worth reading. Ned Soltz is a contributing editor to Red Shark News and a welcome guest on The Buzz. Ned, thanks for your help both last week and this week, and have yourself a good year.
Thank you, Larry, and a good year to all our listeners as well.
Continuing our look into 2018, we're joined by Randi Altman. She's the editor-in-chief of PostPerspective.com. She's been writing about our industry for a long time, and she's an expert on what's happening in post-production. Hello, Randi. Welcome back.
Hey, Larry. How are you?
And a very happy holiday to you.
Right back at you.
Randi, last week, we took a look back at key trends in 2017. So what I'm curious this week is how you see them playing out in 2018. What's coming?
Well, we've seen a lot of AR, VR, mixed reality, 360 video happening in 2017, and I think that will continue in 2018. But I think as more people are working in VR, workflows are starting to be hammered out. Again, I don't know if there's any standards to be had, but I do think best practices are being distributed among professionals. Workflows are becoming more streamlined. But again, I don't know how much narrative storytelling we're going to see with VR. That might actually shake out in 2018. For 2017, we saw people telling stories, maybe selling product. Maybe it's a music video or it's a concert experience. But for the most part, I think VR, AR, that was being used to sell product. So I'm curious to see what's going to shake out in the new year.
Do you see VR being a replacement for what we're doing now or an adjunct? And do you see it being as big as 3D or bigger? What's your take?
I see it being used alongside. So feature film is being released, and they're going to release VR experiences that take people on a different journey than the film itself. And maybe they could pick different ways they wish the story played out. But I don't think it's going to replace it. Is it going to be bigger than stereo 3D? Yes, I think it already is. I think people have already embraced it. Now with the headsets, people could watch VR anywhere. They don't have to go to a theater and experience it that way. It's a very solo experience, VR, and people could do it pretty much anywhere.
Well, it's a year of the R's. We've got VR and AR and HDR. What's happening with HDR in your mind?
Well, it's going to continue on. I mean, people like telling stories that way, and it enhances the picture. And I think more so than 8K, which people will be, I think, experimenting more with 8K. I don't think it's going to be a regular way to do.
You don't think it's going to be real big?
No, I don't. I think that there's going to be steady gains, and more manufacturers are introducing 8K products. So there'll be some experimentation, there'll be some projects done with it, but I don't really see it becoming the norm.
Do you even see 8K as a real thing, or is it just marketing hype? Because we can't physically see an 8K image.
That's right. I mean, Dell has an 8K monitor, 8K display, but is it true 8K? The people debate that. So I don't know what 2018 is going to hold for displays. I'm assuming that some companies will have some stuff, but until then, you're right. It's very hard for the everyday consumer to see anything in 8K.
Hollywood, from a staffing and diversity point of view, has been in complete turmoil the second half of 2017. What do you see happening in 2018?
Well, there's been a lot of news in that respect, and it's not been good. But what I see in 2018 is a lot of people, women, probably they're going to have the opportunity to be in different positions within the industry, and I hope within the world itself. But in terms of our industry, women have typically not been in the overly technical positions, and it's not because they aren't qualified. It just hasn't been. And I've moderated a couple of panels on this with women in VFX and women in post, and nobody has a real answer other than maybe they're intimidated in a way. So there's a ton of female executive producers, but there's more and more female colorists. There are more and more female editors and more and more female directors. Are there enough? No, that has to change. And I do think that we are going to see that change this year.
If you had one thought to wrap up 2018, is it more the same, radical change, changes in technology, or changes in people?
I think it's going to be a combination of all. I don't see any one thing coming and changing the industry. I think little steps ahead, and we'll see the change in small increments. But I don't expect to see any one giant thing come and change the industry, no.
Randi, thank you so very much for your time. Randi Altman is the editor-in-chief of PostPerspective.com. That's all one word, PostPerspective.com. And it is always a delight talking with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry.
Jonathan Handel is an entertainment and technology attorney of counsel at Troy Gould in Los Angeles. He's also the contributing editor on entertainment labor issues for The Hollywood Reporter. And best of all, he's a regular here on The Buzz. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome back.
Larry, it's a pleasure to be back.
Jonathan, last week we took a look back at 2017 and some of the highlights, or more importantly, the lowlights of the last year. What trends are you watching for 2018?
Well, of course, the big story that continues to have traction, have legs, is the sexual harassment stories that started with the Harvey Weinstein allegations and have continued apace. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. The industry is setting up a task force to be headed by Anita Hill that will try to come up with some method for dealing with and these kinds of allegations and reducing the occurrences. And I think that's going to be a very big and dramatic piece of what goes on. We're also, of course, this is a little beyond the entertainment industry per se, but inevitably will have an effect. We're heading into the midterm elections. We won't get into politics here, but suffice it to say that those are going to be heavily contested, and the industry will take its various stands there. We also will be the outcome of several deals that we talked about last week, or attempted deals involving consolidation in the entertainment industry. AT&T Time Warner is going to court because the Justice Department is trying to block that. Disney acquiring large parts of Fox may happen, and Sinclair Broadcasting is likely to successfully acquire the television stations owned currently by Tribune. So we will see consolidation in the new year, probably see an increase in interest rates that will have an effect on the industry and on consumers generally. And I would also expect that we will see premium video on demand. In other words, movies that are in theaters that while they're in theaters or just shortly after they've left the theater, they'll be available at a premium price in the home. It's likely that there will be at least one company with that sort of product offering this year.
All of the guilds, or most of the major guilds, I should say, negotiated contracts in 2017. Do you see anything happening on the labor front?
On the labor front, a couple things. One key thing. One is that the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, successfully attained recognition with Telemundo, and they don't yet have a deal. So that really reflects demographic change here, the importance of and growth of Spanish language broadcasting. I should mention also that there will be continued efforts, I think, to try to consolidate gains and increase unionization in interactive media, video games. The SAG-AFTRA video game strike lasted around a year and ended last year. So those are some of the labor issues. IATSE also, the union that represents crew, of course, most crew, will be negotiating their deal this year. The above-the-line unions, as you said, did negotiate their deals last year, and so they stand pat for another couple of years or so.
If you were to look at it from a higher level perspective, it sounds like consolidation is one of the themes and diversity is one of the themes. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's correct. And those are probably the two most significant themes. And we are going to see continued interaction between the industry and the consumer. On the one hand, changing consumption patterns is a large part of what's driving this consolidation and technological change. On the other hand, the increasing diversity in the entertainment industry may have some effect on the larger society. Finally, dialing back to sort of the immediate future, I will be going to the Consumer Electronics Show the second week of January, and we'll see what's on tap in terms of new technology.
CES is the world's largest toy store. I always enjoy that show.
It absolutely is.
Jonathan, for people who want to keep track of your writing, where can they go on the web?
Two places, THR Labor, the Hollywood Reporter Labor.com, and jhandel.com, JHANDEL.com.
And Jonathan Handel is an entertainment and technology attorney of counsel at Troy Gould, as well as a contributing editor for The Hollywood Reporter. Jonathan, as always, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks very much.
Michele Yamazaki is the VP of Marketing at ToolFarm. Now, this is a company that specializes in plugins and effects for video editors. She's written or co-written 2 books on plugins, as well as becoming the go-to person on software and plugins for our editing systems. Hello, Michele. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Last week, you shared your thoughts on what the highlights were in 2017. So what I want to do this week is flip it around. What are you expecting for 2018?
Honestly, I'm expecting more of the same. I'm expecting that new releases of software will add performance and more workflow features for users. I think that the VR is going to be pretty strong. VR, AR, 360 video, and all that.
Now, what does workflow features mean to you?
Oh, just better design of their user interface. Some features in certain softwares have been a little clunky. Going between different applications has been a little clunky sometimes, and they're making it easier to work between different softwares. We saw a lot of that in the last couple of years, and I think that's going to continue to be a trend.
What's your thoughts on CGI?
You know, we go to the movies a lot, and I will admit that I'm not a fan of the superhero genre that you see a lot of effects. I mean, pretty much the whole films are effects. The CGI seems to really have gotten a lot better in the last few years. The physics and all that seem to be a lot more accurate, I guess, to the eye. It doesn't stick out as like, oh my gosh, he just bounced off the ground, in an odd way that looks so unnatural. It seems those type of things are, they're really doing a good job of what is it, uncanny valley as well. You don't notice it so much.
Let's shift gears and take a look at the business side of our industry. What do you see happening in 2018?
Well, in 2017, there were a lot of smaller companies that were bought up by larger companies. And, that's kind of a trend that we've seen in the last 10 years. And I expect that to continue. I'm not really sure what it will be, but, there's always some small company that comes up with a great idea. And then someone like Adobe or Apple or someone else will acquire them and acquire their technology. So who knows what that will be? It'll be a mystery. As far as, the average worker, someone who's behind a computer every day, I see them getting calls for more 360 VR video and AR type work, and probably some advertisements for projection mapped things. I know someone a couple of years ago who had a job for projection mapped wedding cake, which is pretty cool. And I think we're going to end up seeing a lot of that kind of thing coming up. It's like you're not seeing just video on a screen anymore. There's other places where this video is going to end up.
What is projection mapping?
Projection mapping is when you create video, you can use specialized mats to map onto different objects. For example, you could map onto a wedding cake, or you could map onto different shapes. I've seen examples of like Las Vegas shows that have like a big sphere, and they're mapping things onto a sphere and then other elements in a scene. And it can be used for entertainment or an art project. I've seen it where they have it projected onto the sides of buildings. It's very interesting, and I'd love to do some tests. Oh, actually, my parents were at a Halloween thing, and they had projection mapped faces on pumpkins. And these pumpkins talked, and it was a cute little thing. My mom took video of it, but I think it's going to be used all over the place because it's a unique way to advertise or to, show your art, that kind of thing.
Michele, for people that want to keep track of what you and your company are up to, where can they go on the web?
They can go to toolfarm.com.
That's all one word, ToolFarm, toolfarm.com. And Michele Yamazaki is the VP of Marketing at ToolFarm. And Michele, thanks for joining us, and have yourself a wonderful new year.
Thank you. You too.
Here's another website I want to introduce you to, doddleNEWS.com. DoddleNEWS gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. DoddleNEWS also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. DoddleNEWS is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go: doddleNEWS.com. Philip Hodgetts is a technologist and the CEO of both Intelligent Assistance and Lumberjack System. And even better, he's a regular on the buzz. And last week he talked about what was happening in 2017, but I want to know what's happening in the future. Hello, Philip. Welcome back.
Thank you, Larry.
All right, jump right into it. What do you see happening as the key trends in 2018?
The key trends will be, a continuation of the hype around 360, which I remain somewhat skeptical about. Of course, high dynamic range will roll out. Affordable sets will be coming into people's lounge rooms all year and affecting our production process because we have to future-proof our material. And this is the year that we will see more and more of the machine learning start to have effects into our production processes. It's not so much taking them over, but as in smart assistants, I think is the direction I'd like to see us take.
Well, give me an example.
Speech to text takes over from human transcription, either the stuff that you've done yourself, or image recognition. For example, instead of having to have an assistant organize all of your B-roll into bins and tag it with appropriate labels, I think this year will be the first year we see software in the mainstream that is available to you and I and to every editor that helps categorize and search. I know that Adobe have been working with IBM Watson on an image search over the last year. They previewed some stuff at NAB last year now, and there have been ongoing demos in small groups. So I expect that they will be the first to show us some sort of search your bins by actual image without having to search by keywords that you've added, and therefore the whole logging process. I see this the time-consuming logging process will be largely taken over by machines. I know there will be people who say to me, but I have to see every frame before I can make every decision. And great, if you're in an environment where that's possible, all the better. I would love to be there, but I think most editors are in the environment where we need to get this done as quickly as we can, and we need to find the places where there is emotion in our material. We need to find the place where it's a cat or a dog or a house or Sam or Tom, and we will be able to do that without having to go through the time-consuming logging phase that drives everyone nuts.
Well, the other problem is shooting ratios are skyrocketing. In the past, a 10-to-1 or 20-to-1, you could see everything, but when you've got 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 to 1, there's no way.
Yeah, when an average, Murray reality TV show clocks in at 68 hours of shot material per day of shoot, remembering there's only 24 hours in each actual day, so they're shooting nearly 3 times the day rate, and to watch that alone is 3 days worth of work. I mean, how can you watch 3 days of dailies when there's only 24 hours in a day, and presumably editors should sleep? So this is where the artificial intelligence tools, this image recognition, content, emotion detection, speech to text, and therefore keyword extraction, is going to make our lives so much easier. And I think a lot fewer projects will be left on the shelf, because shooting it was fun, but all that organization and editing it is going to be has been the block, and that's going to be alleviated by this new technology.
Well, in almost exactly 4 months, NAB will be upon us again. What do you think the hot topics will be?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of machine learning coming around there, high dynamic range, obviously, and yes, we'll see a lot of 360 VR. I'm not sure where the other hot trend of augmented reality is going to fit into a production world, because it doesn't seem to me to affect what we do in the production side as it happens downstream of our edited material. But, maybe my vision is too small, and we will see augmented reality coming into the edit bay.
It's an exciting time, Philip. For people who want to keep track of what you're writing and what your companies are developing, where can they go on the web?
PhilipHodgetts.com is where I do my writing, and IntelligentAssistants.com is where you'll find our software to make life working with Final Cut Pro and Premiere Pro easier. And Lumberjack System is the only logging and pre-editing tool for Final Cut Pro 10.
I like your commercial. And Philip Hodgetts is the CEO of both Intelligent Assistants and Lumberjack System. And Philip, as always, it's fun chatting with you. Take care and have yourself a great new year.
Thank you. May 2018 be everything you want it to be, and that extends to all of our listeners.
In his current role as the Director of Technology at KeyCode Media, Michael Kammes consults in the latest in technology and best practices into the digital media and communication space. He's also the executive producer and host of 5 Things. Hello, Michael. Welcome back.
Hi, Larry. Good to talk to you again.
Michael, last week we took a look back at key trends and things that surprised you in 2017. So how do you see things playing out in 2018? What do you see as the future?
Well, I think consumers are going to have a really good year. And the reason I bring that up is, if you like acronyms like I do, you've probably been following SMPTE and ATSC 3.0. And now that is becoming kind of the law of the land, as much as SMPTE can be a law, I think we're going to see a lot of facilities moving over to ATSC 3.0, which means as consumers, there's going to be a lot more ways to consume broadcasting cable media.
Translate that into English. What is ATSC 3.0?
ATSC 3.0 is for lack of a better marketing term, a revolution in terms of how media can be broadcast and consumed. Instead of just being over the airwaves or via your cable provider, you'll now be able to view a majority of the same media on almost any mobile device over the air and via your Wi-Fi signal. So it makes the content that's being generated by the broadcast networks more easily accessible with better metadata. So it allows you to actually experience the media a little bit deeper.
So it's a standard to allow broadcast networks and stations to send their media out over the web?
Over the web, yes. More IP-based, yes.
The problem the broadcasters are in, and you know this even better than I do, is the budgets have cratered, and they just don't have the wealth they had for upgrades the way they did even 10 years ago. That the cash just isn't there. So I think they're hurting to be able to make this kind of conversion.
I completely agree. I think also when it was still SD, you weren't upgrading for 5 or 7 years. You were upgrading, and it was going to last you for 15 or 20 years because decks were decks and broadcast and tubes were tubes. And aside from a part here and there, you could use the same gear for over a decade. And unfortunately, that's just not the current landscape with disposable technology. Heck, our furniture is disposable, right? It's all IKEA. We buy Blackmagic gear. It's disposable. And the same thing is for broadcasters who are buying gear that unfortunately will be based on computers, which will be out of date in several years. So unfortunately, a lot of broadcasters haven't moved to that paradigm of having to update, more frequently.
Okay. So we've got that to look forward to, which means more program choices for consumers. What else are you looking forward to?
Well, I think the rest of us who are, I don't want to say Apple fanboys, but who like the Mac ecosystem, even with all its restrictions, I think are going to enjoy this year. Obviously, the iMac Pro just started shipping a few weeks ago. The new Mac Pro, which should be shipping at some point this year. We don't know if that's going to be January 30th or December 30th, but we'll get more of the Apple sauce. I think what we're also going to see is Apple with High Sierra has been dipping into the external GPU realm. And although it's very rudimentary right now and there's a lot of restrictions and hiccups, I think we're going to see performance just shoot through the roof as third-party manufacturers create more external GPUs that our NLE tools and our encoding tools and graphics tools can start using that. So I think from a performance standpoint, we're going to see a huge boost on that end. I think for those of us who enjoy Netflix, I think you're going to see a lot of tools this upcoming year that are going to be Netflix friendly. And when I say Netflix friendly, I mean creating the media that Netflix wants, which is an IMF wrapper, which is kind of like a glorified zip file with some enhanced metadata. And I think you're going to see a lot of affordable software solutions to create this. So it's not just for the big folks. It's now for the average consumers, or average creators rather, who want to create media for Netflix. I think what you're also going to see is a lot of software companies continuing to jump on the subscription bandwagon, kind of like what Adobe did, which is you're going to pay per month. You're going to be renting the software instead of owning it. I know a lot of folks don't like that. They want to buy it and own it. Unfortunately, in the business realm, it makes more sense to have predictable income every quarter, every month. So I think you're going to see more manufacturers who make software move to that model, I think much to the chagrin of folks in the industry. As we also talked about a few weeks ago regarding VR, I think we're going to continue to see the kind of decline of VR in terms of working with it for long-form cinematic pieces. I think we're going to see it for more experiential. So we're talking, marketing and real estate and that sort of thing. But I think we're going to see more investment in the AR realm, the augmented reality realm, to kind of aid people in the business sector as opposed to being a complete entertainment experience.
You just got yourself invited back to about 12 different programs to talk about all this stuff.
That's my whole plan, Larry.
Aside from VR, do you think there's any technology that's going to slowly fade away in 2018? Or maybe not fade away, but become much less important?
Pause. Let me think that through, because I was thinking about that earlier, and I couldn't think of anything that besides VR that was really going to take a big hit this year.
Michael, that's some fascinating stuff to think about. You got any more thoughts before we wrap up?
Here's one, and I have to preface this with this is not NDA. This is just, the way I see things, is that Adobe, I think, is poised to really make a push into the remote editing paradigm at the consumer level. Right now, Avid does it, but you need to have deep pockets. I think Adobe already has storage in the cloud to some extent for smaller files. I think they already have team projects, and now with the late 2017 release of shared projects, I foresee at some point Adobe charging users more and allowing you to store your video media in the cloud, which will then be distributed amongst multiple servers around the country, so you can remote edit with video in the cloud. I think that only makes sense. I think the only thing Adobe needs is an asset management system on top of it. But that's what I kind of see in the tea leaves. Again, that's not, I'm not revealing any NDA info. That's just the writing on the wall as far as I see it.
I think there's going to be a push toward remote editing, but until we solve the whole internet bandwidth issue, it's going to not function. Because if I'm uploading 2 or 3 terabytes of data a day, there isn't a pipe fast enough to be able to support that.
I'd agree with that. I think there's probably going to be 2 paradigms. I think there's going to be you create the proxies on your own and you upload it to an Adobe shared folder and you're editing those low-res proxies, or perhaps you're leveraging Amazon S3 and their elastic transcoder, and if you have those fat pipes, you're uploading the high-res and then letting the elastic transcoder generate those proxies for the end user in the cloud. But you're right, it certainly depends on how fat your pipe is up to the series of interconnected tubes.
Michael, some fascinating things to think about. Where can people go on the web to learn what you're doing and thinking?
2 places. You can track me down on my namesake, michaelkammes.com, or 5thingsseries.com.
That second is the number 5 Things series, all one word, 5thingsseries.com. Michael Kammes is executive producer and host of 5 Things. And Michael, as always, thanks for joining us.
Happy New Year. Thanks a lot, Larry.
I was just thinking, this evening we've heard lots of opinions on where the future is taking us. We're pretty well agreed on the growth of machine learning and HDR and augmented reality, though AR doesn't provide many opportunities at the moment for filmmakers, and machine learning will take several years to find its place. We're split on the long-term prospects for VR and 8K and hopeful that recent improvements in diversity will continue. On the business side, software rental, which is also called subscriptions, and business consolidation are likely to grow, neither of which are particularly good for end users. In other words, this coming year will be a combination of good news and bad news, with much of what happened obscured until the dust settles a bit. For me, there are three bigger trends that I'm watching. First is the continued erosion of personal privacy, with ever-on devices that constantly monitor what's going on and being said around them. Second is our inability to keep digital data secure, especially devices attached via the Internet of Things. Also witnessed the latest security crisis with Intel CPUs and cloud services. And third is the continued use of technology to reduce the number of available jobs. And it's this last one that troubles me the most. The American economy today is founded on two contradictory pillars of support. First is sustained economic growth through consumer spending, while at the same time increasing the use of technology to reduce the number of employees. We're seeing a classic example of reduce the headcount behavior with the recent corporate tax cut. In more than 90% of companies surveyed, that money didn't go to wages or hiring, it went to stockholders. What seems lost on industry is that consumers can't keep spending if they don't have jobs. And automation, in all its various forms, is claiming thousands of jobs every day. We see this on set, in post, and throughout marketing and distribution just in our own industry. The mantra is, let machines do the repetitive work while consumers bask in their newfound leisure time. But leisure time is no fun if you don't have money to spend during it. This increasing reliance on technology is creating an underclass of unemployed and underemployed workers that has me deeply troubled. In addition to cool new toys and features, technology also needs to find new and innovative ways of retraining workers and reestablishing them in the workforce. We need a serious discussion of how to balance technology with employment, and we need to think more carefully about whether inventing new technology because we can is the wisest course for society. Just something I'm thinking about. I want to thank our guests for this week, Ned Soltz of Red Shark News, Randi Altman of PostPerspective.com, Jonathan Handel of The Hollywood Reporter, Michele Yamazaki of ToolFarm.com, Philip Hodgetts of Lumberjack System, Michael Kammes of KeyCode Media, and James DeRuvo of doddleNEWS.com. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. A Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2018 by Thalo LLC.
The Digital Production Buzz was brought to you by KeyFlow Pro, a simple but powerful media asset manager for collaboration over a network. Download a free 30-day trial at keyflowpro.com.